Ever since the last phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe ended with such a bang, we've been waiting on the edge of our seats to see what Kevin Feige and the rest of the Marvel crew have in store for us next. And while there are a ton of new projects on the horizon, there is one that we think is going to be just about the most important MCU movie ever made, and that is Spider-Man 3. When Jamie Foxx confirmed that he would be returning to the MCU as Electro for the first time since The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he opened the door to some incredible theories about what exactly is going to go down in this new Spider-Man movie. We've got all the unbelievable details for you right here, so keep watching to find out why Spider-Man 3 might just change the MCU forever. We all know that, based off of how Spider-Man Far From Home and Avengers Endgame left off, that this next movie is going to be a very big deal for Peter Parker. Not only was his identity revealed at the end of Far From Home, but he was also freshly framed for the demise of Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. If that weren't enough in itself, at the end of Endgame, he lost his friend, mentor, and father figure when Tony Stark sacrificed himself to save the universe. So it's safe to say that Parker is going to be reckoning with a whole lot of huge changes in his life going forward, continuing to mourn the passing of Stark and trying to figure out how to manage life as an outed hero who was also falsely vilified for a crime that he didn't commit. All of those things would make for a huge movie on their own, but with the surprise announcement that an old foe would be making a comeback, this Spider-Man 3-quel is set out to be seriously ambitious. But who is this foe exactly? For those who might need a little bit of a refresher, we first saw Electro on the big screen all the way back in 2014, when he appeared as the main villain in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, when Peter Parker was played by Andrew Garfield. Electro was formerly an electrical engineer named Max Dillon, not Matt Dillon, who you might remember from such films as The Outsiders, There's Something About Mary, and Wild Things. That's a very different guy. Anyway, one day, Dillon, Max, not Matt, accidentally gave himself an electric shock, which caused him to fall into a vat of genetically modified electric eels, who then attacked him and turned him into a human electric generator. By the end of the movie, he had taken on the alias of Electro, and was finally taken down by Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy. And since he didn't survive the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, we had assumed that we were done with Electro for good. That was, of course, until Jamie Foxx announced on Instagram that he would be back in this newest and most hotly anticipated new Spider-Man movie. And yet, we know that some things will be different. For starters, Fox specifically said that he would not be blue this time around, which leads fans everywhere to believe that he'll be playing a different version of the character. Fans everywhere can rejoice at the news that they're not planning to stick with the much maligned blue version of Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, as many people see that as one of the many reasons the movie didn't do very well at the box office. They had dramatically redesigned Electro from how fans knew him in the comic books, to the point where he was completely unrecognizable. Fortunately, Marvel has always been better at sticking relatively close to the comic designs when putting them together for the movies, so hopefully we'll be getting an Electro that is a little more classic and a little less see-through. While we won't know until the movie actually hits theaters, we have to wonder if this new version of Electro will have any relation to the original, seeing as how they are both being played by the same actor. It would have been easy enough for them to recast the villain, or cast Fox as a different character altogether. So will Fox be playing a different Electro, or the same Electro in a better outfit? And if so, this might all be possible because of a little thing known as the Multiverse, which brings us to our next point. How? And why would Kevin Feige and the minds behind Marvel even go about introducing such a complex idea into the MCU? Well, just as the photo that Jamie Foxx posted and then deleted seemed to suggest, the key to all of this could be Spider-Man, or more accurately, Spider-Men. In the image, which showed three Spider-Man, anyway, they're looking up at an electrical storm with Fox's face on it, and fans immediately came to the conclusion that we might soon be seeing all of the big screen, live-action versions of Peter Parker unite in the upcoming movie. More specifically, that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield would join Tom Holland to take on the new and improved Electro together, which is exactly where the multiverse comes in. It's impossible to talk about multiple versions of Spider-Man coming together to battle the forces of darkness without talking about one of the best animated movies and superhero movies in general to hit screens in recent years, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That movie was so unanimously successful and beloved by everyone who saw it that it stands to reason that both Marvel and Sony would be interested in trying to replicate that success. Plus, Kevin Feige has been completely forthcoming about the fact that he believes exploring the multiverse is the next logical step for the MCU to take in order to continue to weave together all of these different stories that take place in different times and universes. It was a successful move for the CW slate of superhero shows last year, with the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse proved that it could work really well on the big screen as well. Clearly, it's something that Feige and his team are building to in this upcoming post-Avengers phase of the MCU. He's said that the new Doctor Strange film will help break open the multiverse, and that it will also tie into one of their new Disney Plus TV series as well. While he was careful not to mention which series it will be, fans put it together that he was hinting that Tom Hiddleston's new Loki series will cross over with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. While we don't know exactly how that's going to happen, it's clear that Feige plans to make the MCU a place where characters can move in and out of each other's stories with ease, and can lead to more ensemble films like the Avengers saga. Not only would bringing back all of the previous versions of Spider-Man make for an awesome experience for the fans, it would also help solve the problem of keeping Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, while he is still technically owned by Sony. Holland became such an integral part of the MCU over the last 5 films that when it came down to their negotiations over the character last year, fans everywhere were worried that Sony was going to pull him out and keep him for themselves. Luckily, they seem to have reached an agreement that allows Holland to do both, and because the character now lives in both worlds, it was easier to open the door to welcome back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Not only that, but J.K. Simmons will also be returning for the next Spider-Man movie, reprising his role as J. Jonah Jameson from the original Sam Raimi trilogy and Far From Home. And since Sam Raimi himself is directing Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it seems all too fitting that there would be some harmony between this whole new slate of movies. With Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the precarious position that we talked about earlier, left without the guidance of his mentor and dealing with a whole slew of new problems, it might actually be the perfect time for him to be visited by a couple of guys who know all too well just what he's going through. Who better to help the youngest Spider-Man tackle all of these new challenges than the 2 other versions of himself who have been through enough trouble of their own? Of course, once you open the door to alternate versions of one character, you open the door to nearly limitless possibilities for any other character, or version of an existing character that you can think of, and nearly all of it would be justifiable because, well, multiverse.
Hey fellas.
One of the wildest rumors going around is that another Iron Man may make an appearance in the upcoming MCU films, played by none other than Tom Cruise. With the idea that he'll pop up in Doctor Strange, with the bond between Iron Man and Spider-Man, there's no way that they wouldn't have these 2 cross paths, if the rumors turned out to be true. It would be a Tony Stark, from another universe of course, but Tony Stark all the same. In fact, it's been even further rumored that Kevin Feige wants all sorts of different actors to be able to come in and play different versions of the characters that we already know and love. So who knows which celebs will be popping up in the future. While this all might sound a little chaotic, there is one possibility that could help bring together all of these different ideas into one giant movie in the same way Thanos did for the Avengers, and that is the long-anticipated, highly speculated Sinister Six. There have long been talks about trying to make a Sinister Six movie happen, and with this new multiverse and newfound harmony between Sony and Marvel, we might be even closer to seeing that happen. While there have been many different members of the Sinister Six in the comics over the years, fans speculate that Marvel could be aiming to bring together Jamie Foxx's Electro, Michael Keaton's Vulture, Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, Jared Leto's Morbius, Michael Mando's the Scorpion, and Tom Hardy's Venom. Sure, Mysterio is presumed dead, and Hardy's Venom is a lot more of a good guy than a bad one, but hey, multiverse. For instance, we got a tiny glimpse of Keaton at the very end of the Morbius trailer, so we know that Vulture and Morbius are already existing in the same timeline, and with Electro coming back bigger and badder than before, it just might take 3 different versions of Spider-Man to band together to bring down these 6 villains. On a much grander scale, there is some talk about bringing a different Spider-Verse storyline from the comics on the screen, in which Electro from Earth 803 brings together a ton of Electros from all over the multiverse in order to go into battle with the Spider Army, consisting of many different versions of Spider-Man from infinite universes. While that sounds incredibly ambitious, if any studio was up to the challenge, it would definitely be Marvel. It might not all happen in the next movie, but we have no doubt that Kevin Feige and the rest of the Marvel and Sony teams have big things in the works for the coming years. And we don't know about you, but we officially cannot wait for Spider-Man 3. What do you think about these possibilities? Would you love to see an MCU multiverse? Or would you rather they stick to their own timelines? Let us know down below, and don't forget to hit subscribe to keep up to date with all the latest MCU news from ScreenRant. See ya!